All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Danielle Hofer. Thank you so much for joining us today in this Mentor Advisory Forum titled Making an Impact, Corporate Social Responsibility for Small Business. We are recording, so this session will be available to you and will be made available to the public after the session. If you want to access our previous Mentor Advisory forums, you can do so on our website, and I will certainly share a follow-up link in the email with you. My name is Danielle Hofer, and I am the Training and Outreach Officer at Women's Enterprise Center, and I work out of our Kelowna head office. I have a personal passion for sustainability, so it is my absolute pleasure to be facilitating this webinar today. If there is a topic that you would like us to consider sometime in the future, please be sure to complete our follow-up form, as we would love to hear your ideas and we would love to hear your feedback for the session. So I'm going to give an introduction about Women's Enterprise Center. Women's Enterprise Center is a not-for-profit organization devoted to helping BC women start, lead, and grow their own business. Our full range of services includes business loans up to $150,000, with access up to an additional $100,000 through a new partnership with BDC. We also provide business advice, skills training, mentoring, resources, and a supportive community to help them, supportive community to help them realize their business potential. We do this through 3 main offices. So our head office is located in Kelowna, which is where I am today. And then we have an office in Vancouver and in Victoria. Our passion is to empower entrepreneurs to their business success. We are funded by a federal government, which is Western Economic Diversification Canada. And that is part of the Women's Enterprise Initiative, which includes similar organizations in Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba. And you can learn more at womensenterprise.ca. So now on to today's session. Our topic today is making an impact, corporate social responsibility for small business. And to answer your questions this morning, we are so excited to have 2 wonderful storytellers and panelists. I'll start by introducing Gloria Stewart. She's the president and abundance activist at TouchWorks Communications, Inc. Gloria Stewart is a joy and abundance activist, an entrepreneur, and teacher. For the past 30 years, through her consulting agency, she has helped social purpose organizations raise millions of dollars for causes that improve the well-being of individuals and communities. Through both her consulting agency and food manufacturing company, she started in 2010, Gloria's made a commitment to leading enterprises that make corporate social responsibility a core value of their existence, and was voted one of the best places to work in 2008. Still active as a consultant to the social purpose sector, Gloria has also embarked upon a deeper commitment to elevating the human spirit as an author of a book of joyful living. Welcome, Gloria. I also have the pleasure of introducing Nicole Restad. She is the founder and chief impact officer of her own company, which is Forchovia. Nicole Restad is a champion for world change who uses equal parts strategy and passion to innovate and advance social impact. Formerly the corporate citizen director for a tech division of the Walt Disney Company, for almost 10 years she led the vision, strategy, and programming. Today, Nicole consults businesses, social enterprises, nonprofits, foundations, and individuals who want to create strategies and programs that scale to deliver social purpose. Nicole's current passion project is bringing accessible connectivity technology and innovation to rural Indigenous communities, and is as founding chair of the board of, you'll have to help pronounce this for me, Mama Wapwin.
Wapwin.
Okay, Mama Wapwin Technology Society. Welcome, Nicole.
That is a mouthful. Thanks,
Yes,
Danielle.
it is. And so in this session today, what we're going to learn is the differences between corporate social responsibility and philanthropy. We're going to learn about choosing right causes that are the right fit to align your social impact with the values of your brand. Integrate corporate social responsibility into your business plan and make the biggest impact with the limited resources you have. So now I'm going to turn it over to Nicole. All right, and Nicole is going to share her screen.
I'm going to share my screen.
Great. Okay, I see that coming up.
Great. And is it playing, Danielle?
Yes, I see it. If you just hit presentation mode, if you click on slideshow and then play from start. Perfect. There we go.
And is it proper? You guys can see it okay?
Yeah, it is in presentation mode. If you click on use slideshow, I think that would be better.
Yeah, I would. Okay, perfect. Sorry, everyone. There we go.
There we go.
Excellent. Okay, well, thank you so much, Danielle, for the introduction. I'm excited to be here today to talk a little bit about one of my passions, which is social responsibility and how businesses can really make an impact and make it part of their culture and who they are as an organization. So when most people are thinking about corporate social responsibility, they typically will think a lot of times start with philanthropy. So they'll think, as soon as I am making a certain profitability, I'm going to be a good corporate citizen. I'm going to be a business that actually does something for a cause. I'm sure most of you, if you've been in business for any length of time, probably get a ton of asks all the time for money, donations, maybe something local in your town or city where you're asked for a donation to a soccer team or to a women's shelter or food bank. And there's just so many causes out there. There's literally thousands and thousands of charities and so many different causes that you could be involved with. So a lot of people will just sort of think of social responsibility as something that you do when you've got some extra cash and you just sort of ad hoc put money towards opportunities that come up. Traditionally, corporate social responsibility is looked at in sort of this pyramid view, which is at the base, your first responsibility as a business owner is to be economically responsible. And that would even include things like, how do you treat your employees? What kind of income are they earning? Is it something that they can actually have a living wage? And being profitable itself is really something that is ultimately can be healthy for society. If you've got a profitable business, then you can employ people, you can actually help the economy. Second to that is your legal responsibility, is typically how it's thought about, which are things like, are you following the rules? I come from the tech side of the Walt Disney Company, and prior to that, I was a certified financial planner in the financial industry. And in both of those industries, there are a number of legal responsibilities that you might have. And to be a good corporate citizen, you need to be following the rules, where you do business and where your actual supply chain is. So if you're someone that is building something and you're, say outsourcing to China or India or another country, you want to make sure that, whoever you're actually buying your widgets from or having a factory build something, that they are being also following the rules where they are. And today, it's even important to be not only following the rules in other countries, but if you're a Canadian company, you also want to be following the rules, the Canadian rules, in other countries. And because you can actually be held liable in Canada for things that you do or have wrongdoing in other countries. Then there comes to sort of the ethical responsibility. So really thinking about ethics, like are you being a good steward of your environment? Are you being a good steward of your employees? Are you thinking about the ethics around what you're doing? One of my favorite clips, it's from a movie, a documentary, quite an old one called The Corporation. And in it, the former CEO of Interface Carpets, Ray Anderson, there's about a 10-minute clip that is absolutely powerful. And he says in that clip, you know, if you're a company that's building bombs, you know, how can you really be ethical? And that's a consideration. So your business itself, are you being ethically responsible, even in what you're creating? And then finally, a lot of companies will look at cause action and how can they align themselves with something like a cause that might be the cause du jour, whether it's, you know, like you can see that many companies have aligned around different initiatives that happen to be at the forefront of what's happening in society on any given time period. So that could be a cancer initiative, it could be a kids initiative. Bullying prevention, for example, a few years ago was a really hot cause. So companies would look to trying to align themselves with the cause. So when you're thinking about your corporate social responsibility, again, this is sort of the traditional way of how they would look at it. And I would agree that all of these things are absolutely fundamentally important. And this is where I would ask and question you, how might your business impact society, either directly or indirectly? So that question is where I would ask people to sort of start when they're looking at what kind of social responsibilities they should be doing as a company. And so I guess let's maybe open up this question, Danielle, if we could. The question that I'm trying to get to here is, for example, if you're building something that has a lot of packaging and that packaging is plastic, have you considered the ramifications of how people dispose of that plastic? Maybe your product is made out of a toxic substance. Have you considered how that is actually going to impact the environment where that's being made? Perhaps it's clothing and it's being made in a factory overseas. Have you considered the labor standards of that community? In your own backyard, how is your business maybe directly or indirectly impacting those around you? And it's easy to think about the things that are like directly impacting, like maybe where your office is located or your store is located, and you know, what kind of footprint does that have on the surrounding area? But the indirect impact, what we would call externalities, is sometimes not as obvious. So, for example, when your product is actually is finished with its life cycle, is that product then able to be recycled or downcycled, or is it going to be something that's going to be sent to a landfill? So, Danielle, I don't know if you can open the chat function on this to have people comment.
Yeah, absolutely. So our chat window is open, and the question is, how might your business impact society directly or indirectly? So is there, think about your business and think about, is it a product or is it a service, and how that might have an impact. Nicole, if you could still share your screen, that would be
absolutely
awesome. Okay. So any thoughts to our attendees? Can everyone see the question in the chat function? Nicole, did that come up for you?
Yes, I just
okay,
put it up here so that people can see it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, let's let that digest a little bit in our thoughts. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, okay, so Maxine is asking, can you share a few examples of how you've seen service providers impact society indirectly? So a service provider, I would say a great example of a service provider might be, say, a law firm, for example, and you know, they can make a really great direct impact to society if they allow for pro bono services for maybe single parents or low-income families. That's something that they're considering their local environment and what the situation is. A way that a company might impact their local environment as a service provider could also be, I'm trying to think of something negative.
Well, I've got something that's come to mind. So say, for example, a cleaning company. There are many different kinds of cleaning products that you can choose from. And this also becomes a competitive advantage when businesses say, you know, we are making a commitment to the environment. And so we are only using products that don't have harsh chemicals. So that would be a decision as a business owner to make.
Precisely, yeah. And likewise, if they were using toxic substances, then that's going to definitely impact their local environment.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for that question.
That's a great one. Or even if you're a service provider, you know, how are you paying your employees? Is it enough for them if they're working full time to be able to be surviving at the cost of living? So there was a really amazing company down in Washington State, and the fellow recognized he was very successful, and then realized, my goodness, a lot of my employees are living below the poverty line. So he actually changed all the incomes across the board to $70,000 US a year. So it didn't matter what your job was in the company. Even he took a $70,000 a year income because he wanted to make it an even playing field. Now, that's a pretty extreme example, but he recognized that the difference between the highest income earner in the company and the lowest income earner in the company, it shouldn't be that massive. And especially if you're employing people, you know, like they should be able to live at the cost of living.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. All right, so let's move on to our next item here.
Yes.
Perfect.
So when I think about corporate social responsibility, what I really like to think about is, instead of that pyramid, really connecting all of those things all together. So everything from your ethical, legal, economic, and cause responsibility. But how do you get here? A lot of people are confused as to where to start. So that's where we say, let's look at our stakeholders. Who actually am I impacting in my business? And stakeholders can be really any sort of touch point in your business. And that could be anything from the local area where you work. It could be your clientele, maybe your business to business service. And so then it's the businesses that you work with that are part of your stakeholders. Traditionally, most companies view stakeholders as like just your shareholder and the owners. So I would ask all of you, who would you consider are the stakeholders of your business? And I believe, Danielle, we can have people answer or select any of these. Is that correct?
Yes, so there is a poll that has been opened, and please go ahead and indicate your responses. Yep, they're coming through. Okay, so far 100% are saying clients.
Clients, yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
And there could be many others in your business as well. So, so it's not necessarily just one.
Absolutely. I'm seeing another high percentage being my community. I wonder for the people who didn't select that their community would be a stakeholder, potentially their business is online.
It
What
could
are your
be an
thoughts on
online.
that?
Yeah, and by community as well, you've got to consider, it could be your global community if you're a global company. It could be a local community. It could be where your product is actually made, or where maybe if you're, for example, an extraction industry, it could be where you're extracting from, or it could be where you're getting your supplies from. Those could be your communities as well.
Yes, and I see someone who has just posted in the chat, I would consider staff as stakeholders.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Precisely. That's an excellent example. Absolutely. And a very key example, which I actually meant to have in there. So thank you for noting that, because staff absolutely are a stakeholder in your business.
Mm-hmm. And
actually, any other ideas, please put them in the chat. We'd love to hear them.
Absolutely. And we see this comment about a product, so clothing, everything that you mentioned, what the product is made from, where the supplies come from, labor, packaging, shipping, all of this, travel for marketing. So really great points there. Thank you. And so, Nicole, why do you think it's important to identify the stakeholders?
It's important to do that because this is essentially who you're going to be building your social responsibility around. So you really want to be aligned with those stakeholders, your key stakeholders in your business, when you think about the cause that you want to be really rallying around. At the base of every business are those things like being ethical, being environmentally friendly, being a good steward of the environment, and economically viable. So that's sort of like the baseline of social responsibility. When you actually want to align yourself with a cause, it's important to understand who your key stakeholders are and how they might view your business aligning with a specific cause, and whether it would seem like it makes sense. And it's important for companies to do that, because they can really get themselves into trouble if they don't actually think about these things. And I will I'll give you an example. And when I give an example that's a negative example, I do want to call out every company has amazingly heartwarming, caring people that work in that company. And sometimes, though, what can happen is that basically that because they haven't considered those stakeholders, they end up being misaligned with a cause. So in showing the example that I'm going to show, I'm not trying to make anyone feel bad, but it's an example of where there's misalignment if you don't consider your stakeholders. So the example that is an easy one to show is when Kentucky Fried Chicken, this was in about 2010, when they decided that they were going to do a cause campaign with the Cumin Center for Cancer Research, for breast cancer research. And again, the people at KFC totally, I'm sure, thought, wow, we want to get behind this cause for breast cancer. The people at Cumin do amazing work helping women recover from breast cancer and doing research around it. The challenge here was that it was a real misalignment for these two causes, for the cause and the company. And it ended up that there was a huge backlash in the media because high-fat foods are a contributor to cancer. And in the case of Cumin, even they got backlash in the press for basically saying, okay, KFC, we're going to take the money from these pink chicken buckets that you're doing. So this is an example of where it can go wrong if you align yourself with a cause that is not truly congruent with who the stakeholders are in your business. So in the case of KFC, what kind of cause could they align with? They could be aligning with something to do with, something to do with, I would think, environmental, like what does their supply chain look like when we are moving our food, our packaging, there are different ways that they could have aligned to different causes that would have been more aligned with who they are as a company. And for human breast cancer research, they also needed to look at what kind of company could we align with, that maybe it's a company that caters to women. That would make sense. Women who are in that age group of say 20 to 60 or 20 to 80 that we know have a higher rate of breast cancer. That would be a better alignment. When I looked at doing corporate social responsibility, when I led that at for the tech division of the Walt Disney Company, because I was in the tech division and we were doing tech and gaming globally, one of the things that we identified that made sense for the tech division of the Walt Disney Company was that there were very few girls in STEM. So that's science, technology, engineering, and math. And actually, it happens to be the International Day of Women in Science today. So I'm glad that we're doing this example today. But when we looked at how we could align to a cause that would make sense for the tech division of Disney and which IP we would use, we looked to the strong characters of Rey and Princess Leia in the Lucasfilm films, and we basically partnered with an organization called code.org to do a program that was to connect kids to coding. And we used the female characters because we really felt strongly that we wanted to show strong, empowered women in the STEM field. And this was a real passion as well of Kathy Kennedy, the president of Lucasfilm. So it was really quite aligned with our employees internally, with our audiences externally, with who we were as a division of the Walt Disney Company. And through this initiative, we were able to reach those girls and have girls see themselves as someone that could be doing coding and could be in the STEM sciences. So this was something that we were really excited to do, and it was aligned with who we were. When we think about smaller companies, you don't have to be a Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm to be doing a big initiative like this. Maybe you're a person who does, say, consulting to business people on how they dress for success. That's an example that I like to use. And think of women trying to get back into the workforce. Is there a nonprofit in your town that is helping women get back into the workforce that you could do some offering of free sessions with those people to consult to them on how to get back into the workforce for dressing for success, as an example? Maybe you're a company that is doing something to do with food and making, say, jam in your community. Could you be doing something that is bringing breakfast to kids in your local school? Maybe you are a startup doing some sort of tech mobile app, for example. Right now, I've got some partners out in a startup, and we're building a mobile app that's going to connect kids to endangered animals, and it's a game. So think about how your business can touch a cause that makes sense for who those stakeholders are, who your audience is, who your staff are, who you are, and all the different touch points of your company. And when I think about it, ultimately, I really think it's really from moving from that idea of just philanthropy, just giving out money to individuals, individual causes on an ad hoc basis, and going to sort of an integrated purpose. The purpose of who you are as a company, what your vision is, what makes sense for you to align with as a cause. And even within your company, from volunteering to really enabling your staff and your company to have that passion both inside and outside of work, maybe through some skills-based volunteerism. Also, traditionally, it's been sort of siloed away, the social responsibility, to be like one person or one team is responsible for it. Could it be possible that it's owned by everyone? And from even that idea, working behind the scenes, where you're just sort of quietly doing something, to being innovation driven, like maybe you're building a new technology that could help a societal cause. And then finally, from just that idea of just setting goals, like we're going to give 10% of our net profit or 1%, or we're going to be a B Corp, to creating that sort of culture of corporate citizenship right within your company, so it's completely integrated into who you are. But that's how I approach it, and how I would really encourage people to look at it. And any questions, I guess?
Okay, thank you so much, Nicole. I thought you had some really fantastic examples. You know, I like that you said with the KFC initiative, there's really great people behind what they're doing, and they had the best of intentions, but it simply didn't land with the audience. So that's why this strategy is so important. And I think it's great that you started with identifying who are the stakeholders, because if they would have gone through that process, you know, the Cancer Society, you know, who are the people that we really care about? Well, it's the people who are getting sick. And why do they get sick? Well, potentially because they're eating fast food. So that would have answered some of those questions. And the example about the hour of code and making sure that strong women characters are portrayed directly relates to the mission and vision you had for the project. So I think that really aligns. And I do see some chat pieces coming up about some of the projects that people have done. We're going to discuss that in just a moment in the next half when Gloria tells her personal story. So everyone who has questions for Nicole, please think about that in the back of your mind, strategy, how it, you know, can relate to your business. But in the meantime, I'm going to share my screen and move it over to Gloria. Okay, here we are. Okay, Gloria, can you hear me?
And I'm just trying to unmute myself.
Oh, perfect. So thank you so much, Nicole. I think we gained a lot of that and of this strategy. And now, Gloria, you're going to come in and share your own personal experience as an entrepreneur. You know, you've had these strategies embedded into your various businesses. And I'm wondering if you can tell our guests today what some of the initiatives that you started and what business that related to.
Thank you. Hopefully my unmute will last and my gardeners in the background won't make too much noise. Nothing I can do about it. Thank you. I'm really happy to be here. I've got two examples of two businesses that I've had over the years to give you from firsthand experience. One, TouchWorks Communications, which has been a company I've run for many years, and it's a consulting agency to the nonprofit sector. And in 2002, I made a very purposeful decision to change the model. I traditionally had office space, like most businesses as they're growing tend to do, and decided I wanted to be a virtual agency. So I reconfigured, I restaffed, I hired people that were really self-directed and could work in that kind of home-based environment. And this was in 2002, so much before telecommuting became sort of a little bit more mainstream. And at one time we had 10 employees. So my primary stakeholder is absolutely my employee. So mental health and life-work balance to me was really paramount. So from a pillar under the social responsibility, how my employees were paid and the quality of life that they had was really important to me. So I gave my staff a 1 day a month with pay for, as I called, a wellness day instead of a sick day. So, and the rules were you weren't supposed to touch your computer, you know, you had to just completely block off the day for yourself, and you had to do it during the week. So it was just a great experience for everybody. I took them myself. And I also made sure that staff were connected to their communities too in a way that they wanted to volunteer. So again, it was a 1 day a month with pay. to volunteer in any organization that they wanted. And we would come together as a group. Since we were virtual, we would usually come together once a week because we were working on similar projects. And we would share our experiences of where everybody volunteered. And I did the same. I volunteered as well. Sometimes we did group volunteering for one of the agencies that was a passion project for one of the staff. So we really had good life-work balance. There was also an environmental impact to that because we weren't commuting every day. So, you know, we reduced our our environmental footprint. That was a big philosophy of the company anyway, to make sure that we were being really good environmental stewards. We started a program called Paper Watch, which was an initiative to help teach our clients as well as our suppliers really how to be better paper stewards, since most of our business involved paper. So it was one way of us looking at the product that we were obviously in the business of, and making sure that, you know, that was our give back to educate people on reduce, reuse, and recycle. I paid for curbside collection of recyclables at all my employees' homes, because that was before there was, you know, organized recycling. So again, that was another fundamental, you know, pillar of our corporate social responsibility. So that was the TouchWorks example, and that was the company that was voted one of the best places to work in 2008. This was in Calgary, and this was through Avenue Magazine, and I'm very proud of that because it was a really good team. The other company I started was a granola company. I was making granola and decided that, you know, I've been making it for years at home. People kept saying, you should be selling this. And I went, yeah, you're right. So I tipped my toe into that. Now, a much smaller entity. I always had visions of it becoming bigger. But what I did was I looked at some of the big business methodologies and I just scaled it down. So any of you who are listening that are solopreneurs and are maybe not ever wanting to grow your business to having several employees, you can still take all of these examples that both Nicole and I are giving you and scale them to what's meaningful to you as a business. Because the granola was a food product, and I've always cared very deeply about poverty reduction and those kinds of issues, I wanted to make sure that, you know, right from the get-go, as that brand was being built, it was being built as a social brand with the tagline of nourishing the human spirit. So it was more than just food. It was deeper than that. So the causes that were important to me and that we supported as, again, you know, you have to be profitable first, right? That's important. But, you know, we, as that company grew, as the same with TouchWorks grew, you know, you make sure that you're making a bigger investment in community, you know, from a financial point of view. So it was hunger issues that were obvious. That was the alignment piece. So, you know, food banks, of course, breakfast programs for children. So those kinds of things that really got at the heart of hunger. And because it was a food product, to me, that was a natural alignment. So what I always, you know, advertised is that we were supporting hunger issues as opposed to charity XYZ, because I wanted to have more control over how I spent that money. So, I mean, I didn't go as far as formally setting up a foundation just because it was cost prohibitive for a small business, but not to say that you can't be looking at that as your company grows. So those are a couple of examples of things that I did for my two businesses to make sure that it was aligned, to make sure I was being respectful of environment, employees, obviously my clients. We were happy to always tell our clients and customers the kinds of things we were doing so that it could be supportive as well. So that's another important part of it, is the advocacy piece to teach others. So,
Gloria, I think those are some really concrete examples, and especially the example of aligning your food product with a food security or a topic or a cause that really fundamentally relates to what you are doing. So it aligns. And so moving into this conversation of building this corporate social responsibility into your business plan, obviously it was very fundamental. So before we move on to the polling question asking everyone else on the line whether or not they've put this into their business plan. I'm curious, did you do this in the planning stages, or was that afterwards, or is that important even?
Yeah, with the Granola Company, it was absolutely part of the very beginning, as that idea of what this enterprise could look like. It was fundamental. You know, in fact, at one point I thought it might be actually a social enterprise, that I would use that structure. So, and opted not to go that route. But so it was fundamental in creating the birth of that entity. Now with TouchWorks, that company had already existed, but as it grew and morphed, and as I learned more about corporate social responsibility, then I made sure it became part of the core values. So I always recommend that, you know, as the term in the sector is, you know, you want to make sure it's built in and not bolted on, because then it's not authentic. And people have a pretty good BS detector out there. So when big companies, you know, start to align with causes that there's a misalignment, as Nicole was mentioning, people go, yeah, right. So it's not believable, and it can backfire. So the pushback just isn't, you know, it can make a big difference to the bottom line. So you've got to be, you know, we're not talking with big businesses here on this call, but, you know, as you know, grow your enterprise, if that's the goal, then think about those things as how are you perceived in the public? Are you being authentic? Because it has to come from a real place before you start to tell the world what you're doing.
Absolutely. So now we're going to launch the poll, and the question to you as the audience is, do you currently have corporate social responsibility in your business plan? So this could be whether you're working on that business concept, are you looking to put that into your business plan? And already we're getting some responses as they come in. And it looks like the majority has put CSR into their business plan. We're at 80% right now, but there are some that haven't done this. So for Gloria, for those of our guests today who haven't put this into their business plan, is it too late?
Never. It's never too late. Again, if it's coming from a real authentic place and not just as a way of building brownie points, because then it's not going to work for you. So it's never too late, and pick one thing. So, you know, if you're a small business and, you know, maybe you look at the community side, maybe you don't have employees, so that's not relevant, but maybe you look at the community side, and the really good example that you gave as far as, you know, the dressing for success, you know, wardrobe planner, you know, to make sure that they're maybe doing something in you know, with a homeless shelter, with a women's homeless shelter. I mean, there's tons of causes and issues. I mean, it should be something that you care about personally, and then find a way to say, how does that match? And it isn't always about money. It could be expertise that you're lending, but again, then it's something that you can tell others that this is an issue that you're supporting. And it does give you a competitive edge for sure, you know, with your competitors. You know, I mean, there's lots of evidence out there that when a customer has the choice between two companies and one is supportive of community and demonstrating good CSR, then they're usually the ones that are going to be the winner. So again, just make sure that it's authentic.
Absolutely. And so now turning it over, Gloria, I think your volume might be a little bit high. Okay, there we go. Perfect. So turning it over to our guests on the line, we're going to ask you, what corporate social responsibility initiatives are you doing in your business? So we've got the chat function. We would love to hear what's happening around the province, what projects, what causes, what are you doing in your community? Let's brainstorm and share some of the great work that is happening, and we'll comment on them as they come in. There was one from Barb earlier that says she's a seniors advocate, providing later lifestyle planning and also provide navigating consulting work. And so her comment here is that there are some people that cannot provide afford the services, but she does have some wealthy clients who could potentially support those who are less fortunate. So that might be an interesting initiative.
Sure,
Any
she
thoughts
could
on that?
actually, she could create her own fund. You know, nothing's stopping, you know, a for-profit business for creating a fund to say, you know, we're going to use the proceeds from that fund, you know, and ask people to actually donate to it. So, you know, and then that could cover the services for someone who can't afford it. So I don't see why not.
Yeah, absolutely. There's another great example here, Start Fresh Kitchen. So they're a company local to Kelowna, and they are a catering business. But instead of just doing the regular catering, they teach at-risk youth how to have those cooking skills. They also teach other at-risk um, audiences how to make the most out of their food, you know, keeping the ends of their carrots and then making a broth and all of that. They also have a community garden. So it's a catering company with also a social purpose. And you know, we're moving into social enterprise at that point. So that's a good example. Another one here is we're a B Corp. We also have internal employee give back programs where each employee identifies a long-term and annual give back goal. Nice.
Nice.
Employees get a minimum of 3 days per year to enact their annual goal. The long-term goal is tied into employee stock option dividends. Wow. And our founder gifts an additional 10% of the dividends to the charity or cause of choice.
Awesome. Nice.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love it. I was just going to say too, with regards to the person who suggested, could wealthy clients you know, contribute to helping people that can't afford their services? I think that's a great idea. My one caution would be make sure that you're also contributing in a real and meaningful way as well, because a lot of people are sort of tired of that at the cash register, people giving $1 when or being asked to give $1 if that company is not also matching whatever it is the person's giving.
Right.
So I would just caution people on that one. And then there was also another question, Danielle, asking, do I need to be incorporated to be a social enterprise? And no, you don't. However, you should be discussing that with your lawyer and accountant on what's the best setup for your particular situation. Really, to be these words are thrown out all the time. Your business could have a social purpose just by the nature of what it does, and that could be at the very heart of what it is. Or a social purpose could be integrated into your business, as I was discussing with the corporate social responsibility and how to do that. But really, whether you incorporate or not is really up to you and your sort of financial situation and what your lawyer and accountant would recommend from a tax and legal standpoint.
Yes, and I will say that Women's Enterprise Center is absolutely a resource for you. So if you're looking at different structures, we do have business advisors, and you can follow up with me after the session and we can make you an appointment for that.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah.
And British Columbia also has the CCC designation, which is specifically for social enterprise. And again, I would really highly encourage you to do a sort of an assessment with your legal advisors and even to the Women's Enterprise Center if you guys offer that resource.
Fabulous. All right. So any other last thoughts, Gloria? Any tips on how to integrate corporate social responsibility into businesses? Any final remarks?
I think just don't get freaked out by the jargon if you're a small business. It's common sense. I mean, it's the way business was done years ago, to be honest. You know, they did the right thing. They wanted to make sure they helped out in the community. They wanted to make sure their staff were taken care of. They knew who their suppliers were. And as we get bigger as a global, you know, village, you know, we have to pay more attention, I think, to these things. But just go back to your common sense. Do what is right for you, for your heart, for your employees. That will never steer you wrong.
Great. Thank you, Gloria. All right. So before we wrap up, are there any final questions from the audience before we wrap up today's session?
Daniel, I just see one saying, I need to focus on my clients and work. And absolutely, you know, at the end of the day, you're a business and you need to be able to, you know, keep yourself afloat and hopefully be able to save for your retirement or whatever your goals are. Really, it's just being conscious, putting, not just, again, waiting until a future date to be a good citizen in your community. It's about integrating purpose into who you are as an individual and as a business, and just having that as something that is top of mind. So simply things like, maybe it's simply just doing the reduce, reuse, recycle, or if you've got excess product that you're going to donate it to your local women's shelter or to the food bank. It doesn't have to be complicated. So I think it's more just having it as something that's top of mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And Maxine, who wrote, I'm a photographer and can contribute my services to a few, a few different nonprofits. I am very involved with a few not-for-profits, and good quality photos help tell a story, help with donors, help with fundraising, and help with storytelling. So absolutely, that is invaluable to the causes that you care about, to have really good photography and good photos as well. There's a question from Tracy asking, what was it Nicole said about triple something or other? That is called Triple C. I believe it's a Canadian contribution company. Or
yes.
Yes, so that is a brand new structure that's available in British Columbia, and we will, I'll write a note here to share some resources about the 3C. Basically, there are different, it's a whole other structure that we can talk about offline, but it is an option for social enterprises.
I want to just make a final comment as far as, you know, once you've chosen your issue, I mean, even as simple as the photographer example that's, you know, donating some of her services to, you know, some nonprofits, I would brand it as a package, put it on your website, promote it, and not just because you want to have the good, you know, comments come back to you, but this is an example to set for other small businesses, to let them know that that there are things happening in the community. They'll get ideas perhaps from you that they can do in their community. It just evolves engagement for everybody. So use it to your advantage, promote it on your website.
Yeah, great tip, thank you. There's another comment here. It says, build it into the fabric of your business. Consider everything. I'd suggest looking at the SEEE model of sustainability. Nicole's smiling. I'm guessing you've heard of that before. It stands for social, economic, ethical, and environmental elements.
Yeah, exactly. Really, if you look at that pyramid, that's what it is about. But back to the circular view, which I reframed it as, absolutely, these are all the things that you need to be considering. So how are you social, economic, ethical, environmental, as a good steward of who you are as a business? You want to, if you touch those things, then you want to be considering them and how you're making a positive or negative impact to your local and global community.
Fabulous. All right, well, thank you everyone for the discussion and sharing the projects and causes that you really believe in. It's already been 1 hour, so I'm going to wrap up the session. And if you want to keep the conversation going, I will certainly follow up with an email with some resources. Thank you to Nicole, who wrote a fantastic blog outlining some of the strategic approaches and some additional resources. So everyone will be receiving that email as well as a recording. So thank you all so much for joining us today. We do have some exciting upcoming workshops. These are available to you for free. We've got one on February 27th about the Ideas Program for Innovators. That's with our partner OSME, which is the Office of Small and Medium Enterprises. We also have a free seminar that will be broadcasted. That's in partnership with Small Business BC. That's on March 5th, and it's all about breaking barriers to growth for your business. And there's a focus on financial access to capital there. So that is March 5th, starting at 2:30 p.m. And then lastly, we've got some other free webinars coming up, all on the topic of financial fitness. So this is our first time launching this series. There are 3 sessions, and it talks about those really important topics like cash flow and understanding what the numbers and ratios in your business means. Maybe not as fun to us all, but so important to your business success. So I encourage you to check out these free webinars and seminars available. And so lastly, I want to thank our panelists, Nicole and Gloria. You've provided us with some real tangible examples, some real strategy, and you know, I think we're all very passionate about this subject, you know, making business aligned with where we want the world to be. You know, what kind of world do we want to leave for our kids and our grandkids, and even, you know, in the next 10 years, thinking short term. So I think, you know, it's a really important discussion that should be continued. So I will provide, Nicole runs a consulting business, so I will certainly follow up. And Gloria, would you like me to provide your contact details as well?
Sure, absolutely.
Great. Yeah, so this is just the start of the conversation. Thank you all so much. Again, this session will be recorded, and so I will follow up with an email to you all. So thank you all, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Danelle.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, we'll stop the recording.